Welcome to Identity Matters. This is episode number 5, When an Identity Outlives Its Role, a story about guilt.
Welcome to Identity Matters with Dr. Kathleen Perry. Join in to explore one of life's big questions. Who am I really? The Identity Matters podcast will show you that you are and always have been innately whole and worthy just as you are. So slow down, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Identity Matters. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Perry. And today we're going to talk about how roles can really kind of lock us into ways of being and result in feelings, uncomfortable feelings, if those roles really aren't something that we align with anymore. So I want to say as I start here that it's 4:00 in the afternoon and I just finished a client session, and this idea of something I wanted to share really came alive. I really felt like some creative juices flowing. But it's 4:00. I get up really early. I eat an early dinner. And I just realized how conditioned I am to thinking that I create things in the morning. How's this going to work? What am I doing sitting down here at my computer at 4 p.m.? And I just decided it's fresh. It wants to emerge. So turn on the microphone and hit record. And here we are. Anyway, I wanted to share this story about my client, and we'll call him Sam, who was here this afternoon. And he came in and said, I want to talk about guilt. I've been really feeling guilty. He's part of a large family, several siblings, and the oldest, and was self-employed, but never got married, never had children. And so it seemed to him that his siblings assumed that because he had his own business, his time was flexible, that he owned his own schedule, he owned his own time. And for any of you out there, including me, who are entrepreneurs, yes, you realize there's freedom and you're your own boss. But what comes with that too is also a lot of responsibility that not necessarily people who are not necessarily self-employed or entrepreneurs understand that. At times it can be really time consuming. So that being said, I talked to him about how, the family, his siblings in particular, right, would come to him for advice. And when he was younger, he really enjoyed being able to help his siblings. He had the energy, he had the capacity for it, and he accepted the role. He took that role on himself. It wasn't simply acquired or conditioned in him, and it was also something that he took pride in. He felt, he still loves his siblings. And he's in his early 80s now, and he's retired. And one of his sisters has become pretty infirm. She's pretty ill. She's very, very dependent. And her son has moved her in with him. But Sam, my client, is feeling extremely guilty because he feels that he could possibly provide even better care for his sister than her son is. And besides that, he just feels guilty that he has kind of drawn a line and is saying no to things that he wasn't, his nephew wasn't even asking him to do these things for his sister, but he kind of assumed that it was expected of him. And he realized that he was expecting it of himself. And so what was really cool is that he had set these boundaries. He honored himself. And I said to him, that's probably the most difficult part, was to actually decide that you needed to put your own needs and your own care first. And, all this thoughtfulness, really, all this helpful calculation that he did about what he really could and couldn't do for his sister. And so much letting go, that she's older, she's not dependent, she's not independent anymore, and that she really requires help and just a letting go of things aren't the way they were. Things have changed. So he's done really well with that, but here's this guilt thing. And he came in saying, how can I get rid of this guilt? And so we sat down and said, well, okay, maybe it's not something to get rid of. What if it can just be there? And that's something we can all do with an uncomfortable feeling, is just realize what it is. We label it as guilt because there's a story attached to it. But really what's happening is there's a sensation in the body. And it's happening at the same time as this thinking. So the two things go together. And so they seem like the same thing. But if we take away the story, the meaning that we've given, right? If we just say, well, let's not even give this a label. Let's go into the body and see what it is. Actually look, actually feel what's here. And he noticed kind of a sense in the pit of his stomach, and also sort of a contraction and tension in his shoulders. And even felt that when the guilt was really strong, not while we were sitting together, but he could even notice his own blood pressure rising. Well, we can be with that. And he was able to just sit with it and notice what was there and notice how it changes. So to me, that's a really helpful first step. There's a strong emotion, one that we want to push away, or one that we want to sweep under the rug, or one that we want to make better somehow by going out for a run or eating some potato chips, or for me, sitting down and rubbing my dog's belly. But he felt it first. And then go do those things. But we continued to explore. And this was a part that was just so beautiful. He really started to see that this identity, this role of the helper, the one that swoops in to help the family, the one that they called upon, and his healthy pride in accepting that role when he was younger and when he was capable. In times when he probably did suffer with stress in his life and possibly some toll on his own physical well-being and his mental well-being, and maybe even limitations in how far he could have taken his business. But he chose that. And now he comes to this point in his life where he sees that there's this feeling of guilt when he draws a line and he decides to, honor his needs and decide there's some things that he's going to say no to in terms of what he's going to do to help his sister. So this feeling of guilt, he was able to really make this connection. He'd had this deep insight. I could just see the muscles in his face relax, I could see his shoulders drop when he was like, oh, yeah, I'm not upholding this former identity. And still, actually, he was still hanging on to this identity of the oldest sibling that, has free time and doesn't have a spouse and doesn't have children, and therefore wants to and is available to swoop in and help family members. And he could see that that identity was still operating. There was still part of him that felt this need to step into those clothes, kind of. It's almost as if, at some point in his life, I mentioned this to him because I kind of saw this, like somebody, like a seamstress sat down and sewed this costume for him called Superman, Super Brother. And he said, oh, yeah, that looks nice. And he put it on, and then he had to act the role because that's what was expected, what was expected of himself. And it was just really beautiful to see him say, hey, I can take that costume off. I can just be who I am, just pure presence. I can love my sister. I can love all my family. And I can explore a new identity or no defined identity and just be in my life and just know that I will know when to say yes, when to say no. And guilt can be here. But as that identity starts to unravel, the seams of the costume, old costume, start to come undone. And maybe he takes it off entirely. Guilt may not show up as the story begins to be seen for what it is. A story, a constructed identity, an acquired identity, a persona that's part of who he was. And for all those years that he was there for his family, there was no need to get rid of it. But seeing it, and especially, seeing it now, then there's the opportunity to just be and to know that he can be guided by this inner wisdom, this deep love that he has for his family. And who knows how that's going to express, maybe quite differently now that he doesn't feel so identified with this story of Superman brother. Maybe he'll put his cape on, maybe he won't. So, what are roles or identities in your life that you have taken on and that maybe you are giving a lot of your energy to upholding? And I'm not saying that that is anything that needs to be fixed or changed, but it can be really helpful to just look and see where that's operating, where there is. And when you see it, you'll see what you see, and something may really occur to you that, changes things for you. But there's nothing wrong with you. Identities are formed, and they're helpful. And they were really helpful to Sam for many years of his life. But this one doesn't look so helpful anymore. So they are something we can let go of. Nothing's wrong with you. Nothing needs to be fixed. It's how we work. And there's a deeper you that knows, that's aware, that's here right now with me, listening. That's the essence of who you are. And the roles and the identities are held within that. They're seen. We're able to see that. So thank you for being present and listening with me. With so much love. Namaste. Thank you for listening to Identity Matters. I hope you found this episode insightful. If you're ready to delve further into this journey of self-discovery and uncover your innate wholeness, I invite you to consider one-on-one coaching with me. Together, we can explore the unique challenges and opportunities in your life or your business or both. And through that exploration, help you align with your true self. To learn more about my coaching services, visit drkathleenperry.com/services.